in the heart of a bustling city, where skyscrapers kissed the clouds and the streets hummed with endless energy, stood the luxurious Grand Horizon Hotel. It was a beacon of elegance, with its marble floors gleaming under crystal chandeliers and rooms that whispered promises of comfort to weary travelers. But on this fateful evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, a story of injustice and triumph was about to unfold within its opulent walls. Our protagonist, Elena Thompson, a poised and accomplished black woman in her mid-40s, pulled up to the valet in her sleek black SUV. She had built an empire from nothing, rising through sheer determination and intellect to become a force in the hospitality industry. Yet, tonight, she arrived not as a guest, but as the unseen owner, incognito to inspect her latest acquisition. Elena's journey to this moment had been anything but easy. Born in a modest neighborhood where opportunities were scarce, she had clawed her way up, earning scholarships, acing business school, and launching ventures that turned heads. The Grand Horizon was her crown jewel, purchased quietly through a holding company to avoid the spotlight. She wanted to experience it firsthand, without the red carpet treatment that her status might demand. Dressed in a simple yet elegant blazer and jeans, her natural curls framing a face etched with quiet confidence, she stepped out of her vehicle. The valet, a young man with a practiced smile, took her keys without a second glance, but as she approached the grand entrance, she couldn't shake the feeling that eyes were already judging her. Inside, the lobby buzzed with activity, guests checking in, bellhops scurrying with luggage, and the faint melody of a piano drifting from the lounge. Elena made her way to the front desk, her heels clicking softly against the polished stone. Behind the counter stood a receptionist named Karen, her badge gleaming under the lights, her expression a mask of professional courtesy that seemed to falter as Elena approached. "Good evening, ma'am. How can I assist you?" Karen asked, her tone polite but laced with an undercurrent of skepticism. Elena smiled warmly, placing her ID on the counter. "I'd like to check into the presidential suite, please. It's reserved under Thompson." But as Karen scanned the computer, her brow furrowed, and the air grew thick with unspoken assumptions. What followed was a moment that would ignite a firestorm. Karen glanced at Elena's ID, then back at her face, as if something didn't add up. "I'm sorry, but we don't have a reservation under that name," she said curtly, pushing the ID back. Elena's eyes narrowed slightly, but she remained composed. "There must be a mistake. I made the reservation myself." The receptionist's response was swift and cutting. "Ma'am, this is a high-end establishment. Perhaps you meant the motel down the street." The words hung in the air like a slap, dripping with prejudice. Elena felt a familiar sting, the kind that came from years of being underestimated because of her skin color. But she wasn't just any guest. She was the boss, and in just 9 minutes the entire staff would learn that the hard way. As the seconds ticked by, Elena's mind raced. She could reveal her identity right then, but where was the lesson in that? Instead, she decided to let the situation play out, gathering evidence of the rot within her own hotel. She pulled out her phone discreetly, starting a recording, and asked to speak to the manager. Karen hesitated, then buzzed for assistance. Soon, a middle-aged man named Mr. Hargrove appeared, his suit impeccable, but his demeanor dismissive. "What's the issue here?" he barked, barely looking at Elena. She explained calmly, but his response mirrored Karen's: doubt, condescension, and a veiled suggestion that she didn't belong. The lobby seemed to quiet as onlookers whispered, sensing the tension. Elena's heart pounded, not with fear, but with resolve. This was her hotel, her dream, and she wouldn't let bigotry tarnish it. The clock was ticking. 9 minutes, that's all it would take for the truth to erupt. As more staff gathered, drawn by the escalating voices, Elena stood tall, her presence commanding despite the attempts to diminish her. She thought back to her ancestors' struggles, fueling her strength. Finally, as the manager threatened to call security, Elena reached into her bag for the ownership papers. The revelation was imminent, and the fallout would be swift. But for now, in this charged introduction to her ordeal, the stage was set for a story of empowerment that would leave no one unchanged. Elena's story began in the humble streets of a small southern town, where the air was thick with the scent of magnolias and the weight of history. Born to a single mother who worked 2 jobs as a cleaner and a waitress, Elena learned early on that dreams weren't handed out. They were forged in the fires of adversity. Her childhood home was a modest shotgun house, its walls echoing with laughter despite the struggles. From a young age, she showed a spark of brilliance, devouring books from the local library and excelling in school against all odds. Teachers noticed her potential, but the world around her often tried to dim her light. reminding her that as a black girl, certain doors might remain closed. By high school, Elena had already set her sights on bigger things. She joined debate clubs, volunteered at community centers, and worked part-time at a diner to save for college. Her mother's encouragement was her anchor. "Baby, the world may not see your worth, but you make them feel it." With straight A's and a scholarship to a prestigious university, Elena moved to the city, majoring in business administration. College was a whirlwind. Late nights studying, internships at cutthroat firms, and navigating microaggressions from peers who questioned her place there. But she graduated summa cum laude, her diploma a testament to her unyielding spirit. Post-graduation, Elena dove into the corporate world, starting as an entry-level analyst at a mid-sized hotel chain. She quickly rose through the ranks, her innovative ideas on customer service and diversity turning heads. Yet promotions came slower for her than for others, often accompanied by backhanded compliments like, "You're so articulate." Frustrated, but undeterred, she saved every penny and launched her first venture, a boutique bed and breakfast in a revitalizing neighborhood. It was a hit, drawing guests with its warm, inclusive atmosphere. Word spread, and soon she expanded, acquiring small properties and flipping them into profitable gems. The turning point came when Elena secured funding from investors impressed by her track record. She formed Thompson Hospitality Group, a company focused on luxury with a heart, prioritizing diverse hiring and community outreach. Under her leadership, the group grew exponentially, managing hotels across the country. Elena became a quiet powerhouse, featured in business magazines as a self-made millionaire. But she never forgot her roots, donating to scholarships for underrepresented youth and mentoring young black entrepreneurs. Her personal life reflected her strength: a loving marriage to a supportive partner, 2 children she raised with values of resilience, and a network of friends who celebrated her authenticity. Acquiring the Grand Horizon was a milestone. It was a historic hotel, once a symbol of old money exclusivity, now facing financial woes. Elena saw potential, not just in profits, but in transformation. She bought it anonymously through a shell company, planning a surprise overhaul. Her vision was to make it a haven for all, erasing its elitist past. But to ensure success, she needed to see the problems firsthand. That's why she arrived unannounced, blending in as an ordinary guest. Little did she know, the biases embedded in the staff would reveal themselves so blatantly. Elena's experiences with racism weren't new. From being followed in stores to having her credentials questioned at conferences, she had built armor. But each incident chipped away, reminding her why she fought. She channeled that pain into purpose, advocating for change in boardrooms and beyond. Friends described her as a force: elegant, sharp-witted, and fiercely protective of justice. Her style was understated power, tailored outfits that commanded respect without ostentation, and a smile that could disarm or destroy. As she stood in that lobby, the weight of her background fueled her calm. She wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for every black woman who'd been dismissed. Her success wasn't luck. It was strategy, grit, and vision. The Grand Horizon represented her pinnacle, but tonight, it would test her limits. Elena's story was one of ascent, but also of the barriers that persisted. And as the confrontation brewed, her past prepared her for the battle ahead, turning a personal slight into a catalyst for sweeping change. In the broader context, Elena's rise mirrored a generation of black women breaking ceilings. She drew inspiration from figures like Oprah and Madam C.J. Walker, adapting their lessons to modern challenges. Her company emphasized training on implicit bias, something she planned to enforce here. But first, she had to expose the issues. Her background wasn't just backstory. It was the foundation of her authority, making her revelation all the more potent. The city lights twinkled like distant stars as Elena navigated the evening traffic, her SUV gliding smoothly toward the Grand Horizon. She had chosen this night deliberately, a midweek evening when the hotel wouldn't be overrun, allowing her to observe operations without chaos. Her mind buzzed with anticipation. This was her first in-person visit since the acquisition finalized 2 weeks prior. She parked briefly to compose herself, checking her reflection in the rearview mirror. No makeup beyond a touch of gloss, no flashy jewelry, just her authentic self, testing if the hotel lived up to its inclusive marketing. Stepping out, the cool autumn breeze carried hints of rain, matching the subtle storm brewing inside her. The valet approached, a lanky young man in a crisp uniform, his name tag reading, Jake. He offered a standard greeting, but Elena noticed his quick scan of her vehicle and attire. No warmth, just efficiency. She handed over the keys with a polite nod, shouldering her overnight bag as she ascended the grand steps. The entrance doors, ornate with gold filigree, swung open automatically, welcoming her into a world of luxury that she owned but had yet to claim publicly. The lobby was a masterpiece of design. Vaulted ceilings adorned with frescoes, plush seating areas dotted with fresh orchids, and a central fountain trickling soothingly. Guests milled about, business travelers tapping on laptops, couples sipping cocktails at the bar. Elena paused, inhaling the scent of polished wood and subtle jasmine from the diffusers. It was impressive, but she spotted flaws immediately. A scuffed corner on the reception desk, a bellhop lingering too long on his phone. These were minor, but they hinted at deeper issues in management. Approaching the front desk, Elena felt the shift in atmosphere. Karen, the receptionist, was mid-conversation with a colleague, laughing lightly before turning her attention. Her smile was professional, but her eyes flicked over Elena with a subtle appraisal, lingering on her curls, her casual outfit. "Welcome to the Grand Horizon. Checking in?" Karen asked, her voice clipped. Elena set her bag down and presented her ID and credit card. "Yes, the presidential suite under Thompson." Karen typed slowly, her fingers hesitating as she glanced at the screen. The interaction dragged, with Karen asking for confirmation details that felt unnecessary. "And how will you be paying?" she inquired, despite the card already in hand. Elena sensed the undertone, a probe into her legitimacy. She responded evenly, but inside, questions swirled. Was this standard or targeted? As Karen processed, a nearby concierge whispered something to a passing maid, their eyes darting toward Elena. The lobby's hum seemed to fade, amplifying her isolation. Elena decided to test further. "Could you tell me about the amenities? I'm particularly interested in the spa." Karen's response was rote, lacking enthusiasm, as if reciting from a script. No upsell, no personalization, just bare minimum. Elena noted it mentally. Training was lacking. Then, the first red flag. Karen couldn't find the reservation. "Are you sure it's under Thompson? Perhaps it's misspelled." Elena assured her it wasn't, pulling up the confirmation email on her phone. But Karen waved it off, insisting on a system check. As minutes ticked, more staff noticed. A security guard lingered nearby, arms crossed, his presence unsubtle. Elena felt the weight of stares, from guests, from employees. It was familiar, this invisible barrier. But in her own hotel? Unacceptable. She remained composed, engaging in small talk to gauge attitudes. "Busy night?" she asked Karen, who replied curtly, "Always is." No warmth, no curiosity about the guest. The arrival scene built like a slow crescendo. Elena's bag sat untouched by bellhops, who assisted others promptly. She overheard a murmur. "Does she even belong here?" It stung, but she channeled it into observation. This was data, proof of the culture she needed to uproot. As the denial loomed, Elena's resolve hardened. Her arrival, meant to be triumphant, had become a revelation of entrenched bias, setting the stage for the confrontation that would redefine the hotel. The air in the lobby thickened as Karen's fingers danced across the keyboard one final time, her face hardening into a mask of feigned regret. "I'm afraid there's no reservation under that name, ma'am," she declared, sliding Elena's ID back across the counter with a dismissive flick. Elena's pulse quickened, but her expression remained serene, a skill honed from years in boardrooms where composure was currency. "That can't be right," she replied evenly. "I booked it personally. Let me show you the confirmation." She held out her phone, the email glowing clearly with details matching her claim. Karen barely glanced at it. "Our system doesn't show it." "Perhaps you booked at another property?" Her tone dripped with implication, as if Elena had wandered into the wrong establishment by mistake. The subtext was clear. "You don't fit here." Elena pressed gently. "Could you check again? Or call your supervisor?" Karen sighed audibly, rolling her eyes just enough to be noticed. "Ma'am, I've checked. This is a luxury hotel. We cater to a certain clientele." The words landed like a punch, laced with racial undertones that Elena recognized all too well. By now Mr. Hargrove, the manager, had been summoned. He strode over, adjusting his tie, his face a picture of annoyance. "What's the problem?" he barked at Karen, ignoring Elena initially. Karen whispered something, gesturing subtly, and Hargrove turned to Elena with a patronizing smile. "Miss, if there's no reservation, I'm afraid you'll have to leave. We can recommend nearby options." Elena's voice steadied. "It's Miss Thompson, and I assure you the reservation exists." "Perhaps your system is down." Hargrove chuckled dismissively. "Our system is fine." "Now please don't make a scene." The denial escalated. Elena requested to see the guest ledger, but Hargrove refused, citing privacy. "Look, we don't have time for this. Security can escort you out." His words were sharp, his body language aggressive, leaning forward, arms folded. Elena felt the familiar burn of indignation, memories flashing of similar dismissals. Being overlooked for cabs, questioned at airports. But here, in her domain, it fueled her. Onlookers gathered subtly. A businessman pausing his call, a couple whispering. Elena spoke louder. "This is discrimination. I'm a paying customer." Hargrove's face reddened. "Accusations like that won't help. You're not in our database, and frankly, you don't look like our typical guest." The racism slipped out, raw and unfiltered. Karen nodded in agreement, emboldened. "Exactly. Maybe try the budget inn across town." Elena's hands trembled slightly as she gripped her phone, the recording capturing every word. She asked once more for resolution, but they doubled down, calling security. The guard approached, hand on his radio. "Ma'am, time to go." The incident crystallized the hotel's toxic culture, bias not just individual, but systemic. Elena's denial wasn't just about a room. It was a denial of her humanity, her success, but she held back, knowing the climax was near. With the security guard now flanking her, Elena felt the lobby's eyes boring into her back, a chorus of silent judgments amplifying the tension. She took a deep breath, her mind a whirlwind of strategy. "I demand to speak to upper management," she stated firmly, her voice cutting through the murmurs. Hargrove scoffed. "I am the manager. This conversation is over." But Elena persisted, pulling out her business card. Not the one revealing her ownership, but a generic one from her company. "Call this number. They'll verify." Karen snatched the card, dialing half-heartedly before claiming no answer. The lie was blatant. Elena knew the line was manned 24/7. Tension mounted as more staff arrived. A housekeeper peeking from the side, bellhops clustering, whispers spread. Trouble at the desk. Some woman causing issues. Elena addressed them directly. "Is this how you treat all guests?" One bellhop averted his eyes, ashamed, but others smirked, aligning with management. Hargrove escalated. "You're trespassing now. Leave, or we'll involve the police." The threat hung heavy, evoking fears of escalation that black people knew too well. Elena's heart raced, but she stood her ground. "Film this," she said to a bystander, who hesitated, but pulled out a phone. The guard grabbed her arm lightly, enough to startle, but she yanked away. "Don't touch me!" The scene intensified. Karen called reinforcements, and soon the assistant manager joined, echoing the denial. "No room for you here," he said, pun intended. Elena probed their biases. "Would you say that if I were white?" Silence, then deflection. "This isn't about race. It's policy." But their actions screamed otherwise, ignoring her evidence, assuming fraud. Minutes stretched, the clock ticking toward 9. Elena documented mentally. Names, behaviors, systemic failures. She tried de-escalation, offering to pay up front, but they refused. "Credit card might be declined," Karen sniped. Insults piled on, veiled as concerns. "Are you sure you can afford this?" The tension peaked as security radioed for backup, the lobby clearing as guests fled the drama. Elena's internal storm raged, anger at the injustice, sorrow for the wasted potential. But she saw opportunity. This exposure would justify her actions. As the group closed in, she prepared her reveal, the build-up a pressure cooker ready to burst. The lobby fell into a hushed anticipation as Elena reached into her bag, her movements deliberate. "You want proof? Here it is." She unfolded the ownership documents, slamming them on the counter. Hargrove snatched them, his eyes widening as he scanned. Deeds, signatures, her name bold as the owner. This can't be," he stammered, face paling. Karen leaned over, gasping. "She's the owner?" Shock rippled through the staff. The guard stepped back, mumbling apologies. Elena's voice boomed. "Yes, I am Elena Thompson, sole proprietor of the Grand Horizon. And you've just shown me exactly why changes are needed." Whispers turned to gasps. Bystanders filmed furiously. Hargrove babbled excuses. "We didn't know. A misunderstanding." But Elena cut him off. "No, this was prejudice, plain and simple." The climax erupted. "You're all fired. Every one of you involved," she declared, listing names from her recording. Panic ensued. Pleas, denials, tears from Karen. "Please, I have a family." But Elena was unmoved. "So do the people you discriminate against." She called her legal team on speaker, initiating terminations. Security, now loyal to her, escorted the group out amid chaos. In 9 minutes flat, the staff was dismantled. Elena stood victorious, the revelation a thunderclap reshaping the hotel's fate. Word count, 800. Section 7. Aftermath and resolution as the fired staff filed out. The lobby echoed with stunned silence. Elena wasted no time, contacting her interim team to assume control. By morning, new hires, diverse and trained, arrived, transforming the atmosphere. Guests received apologies and upgrades. The hotel buzzed with positive change. Elena reflected deeply, sharing her story anonymously at first, then publicly, sparking discussions on bias. The Grand Horizon flourished under inclusive policies, profits soaring. Personally, she grew stronger, mentoring others. The resolution wasn't just firings, it was rebirth, proving one woman's stand could dismantle systemic wrongs. In the end, Elena's ordeal at the Grand Horizon became a beacon of hope, illustrating that prejudice thrives in silence but crumbles under truth. Her swift action reminded us, empowerment comes from within, and challenging injustice sparks change. Viewers, reflect on your biases, act against them. Like, share, and subscribe for more stories of triumph. What's your take? Comment below.